Good evening. It is time for today's tax talk with attorney Stephen Leahy. That's me. Today is Thursday, October 7th, year of our Lord 2021. And the biggest complaint I keep getting from people and the biggest question I keep getting is, why can't the IRS answer my phone? We're going to try to answer that question here today. Join us, won't you? Okay, little technical problem there. It happens to the best of us. Thanks so much for joining us here today. As I mentioned, the number one question I get is why won't the IRS answer our phones? Second one is, why is it taking so long for me to get my refund? And they kind of go hand in hand here. Why that is. There's the IRS has never been very quick in answering telephone calls. I always said, this is what the public sees. They've been trying to get more money from Congress for many, many years now, since the Lois Lerner debacle, and Congress was cutting their budget. I mentioned, I talk a lot about that on the show, that the budget, I think, deserved to be cut, not because of any reason other than that they didn't need the money as much as they did, since so many of the tax returns are now done electronically, and it just saves a ton of money. We have the video, how they process the tax returns by hand. It's an older video, and it's so labor intensive. And now almost 95% of all tax returns are processed electronically. So you don't need the people that you used to have. And so I think a reduction in the IRS budget was called for. Now they disagree with me, and they tell us that's why they can't collect as much money as they used to collect, or they want to collect. They say that's why the tax gap is so high. We've talked a lot about the tax gap on this show, and they're always using this as a reason. One of the things that people see is when they call the IRS and they won't answer the phone. And then they tell you, well, we don't have the personnel to answer the phone. And so they ask for more money, right? That makes sense. This is their experience with the IRS. Hey, I tried to call the IRS. They can't answer my phone. They must not have enough people. And so that it supports their cry for more money. They want a bigger budget. Now, as we talked about the bill going through Congress, there's a proposal there to add $80 billion to the IRS, nearly doubling the size of the IRS. And of course, that's, they still have this cry about why they can't answer the phone. But they have had some extra work. There has been the child tax credit payments that they have to get out. The stimulus payments are coming out. There's a lot more of the mistakes, those mistake letters that we talked about last week or a couple weeks ago. And so the IRS has had more more duties, let's put it that way. And so it has eaten up a lot of their time. And that's why a lot of the tax returns still haven't been processed from last year. And some of the stories they're going to touch on this. There's a remedy there for at least phone calls for some people. And we're going to talk a little bit about that too. So let's get to the stories, and then we can talk about what's next. Okay, well, that's not the story. Okay, that's the story. Okay, so IRS phone lines are overwhelmed. Here's how to get answers about your taxes. Now, they are really pushing the IRS.gov. They have made tremendous gains there to get more and more people to go to IRS.gov so they don't have to have people. And it makes sense. And most of us do things online more and more anyway. And it's easier than to stand on the line. And we're going to talk about how long it takes. So let's see what this editorial note is. Okay, let's not talk about that. Tax day was 2 months ago. So when was this story? This is from July, this story. But it's still pertinent to this day, so that's why I wanted to bring this story up. Tax day was 2 months ago, but millions of Americans are still waiting on their returns to be processed. If they have questions in the meantime, they may not have many options to get them answered. According to the agency report, and this is amazing, at the end of 2021 filing tax season, the Internal Revenue Service found itself with a backlog of more than 35 million tax returns. These languishing returns require manual processing by IRS employees. As I mentioned, the vast majority of them do not require IRS, but the ones that remain do require it. About half of the unprocessed returns were submitted on paper. The frustration of waiting to receive confirmation your return was processed, or that your return is finally on the way, or refund is finally on the way, could get even worse if you try to call the IRS looking in for more. So here's the numbers. This is amazing. Only 7% of callers to account management lines at the IRS were able to reach a live human, according to a mid-year report with the National Taxpayer Advocate. So the National Taxpayer Advocate is part of the IRS. It's an independent department, they tell us, but it is part of the IRS. So this is the IRS telling you, hey, we only answer in 7%. 7%, not 70, 7%. For the phone line for people seeking help from the Form 1040 for tax returns, the most frequently called IRS helpline, only 3% of callers reached a representative. So what happened to 97%? They didn't get anybody. They can't get their questions answered. The agency received more than 4 times as many calls in 2021 filing season as it did in 2019. And on top of COVID-19 closures that limited staff availability, the IRS has endured budget cuts, and there it is that's the budget. See, it's the budget cuts. And the labor shortages that have decreased the size of its workforce. I just touched on that, why that is. IRS employees could not keep pace with the massive volume of calls, resulting in the poorest service ever in the spring of 2021, the agency release stated. Whether people are trying to respond to mailed notices from the IRS or want to check on the status of their refund, they often want to go directly to a person to get answers to their financial matters instead of checking online. Bell is a principal accountant and founder of Bell Tax, based in Chicago, and says it's up to taxpayers to be patient as they try to get answers to their questions. Well, you really don't have a choice, do you? So you got to be patient. Well, whether you're patient or not, you're going to be patient. What's a taxpayer to do if they have questions and the IRS and the information is your online account doesn't resolve the mystery? Now, again, I mentioned that a lot of the IRS, they started these online accounts a couple of months ago. They started trying to use them more. They expanded much of the services on these online accounts. And some of it works and some of it doesn't, right? These are new websites, vast majority of information. They have a new program there where you can get your power of attorney processed overnight, they say, but I've never had one overnight. And many times my clients never even see it in their online account. Even though in my account it shows it's pending on their account, they do not see it. Some have and some have not. But even in the best of times, it's taken still 2 weeks to get it processed and get me access to transcripts. Keep calling and stay prepared. The process of calling the IRS can be daunting. You may work your way through automated systems only to be stuck on hold for hours, taking time out of your day. And again, a lot of times you're going to be put on hold and then it's going to disconnect. But Bell says you may need to call often to reach a representative. He recommends calling early in the morning, just before the IRS phone lines close for your time zone. You may be able to avoid crowds on the phone lines by calling first thing in the morning or as the day winds down. But whenever you call, get prepared to get the help you need when you do reach the IRS. Citizens may think that once they reach the IRS, they've got a live person, that the agent knows about their particular case. Why would anybody think that? That someone that you're going to call on the IRS knows anything about your case other than what's on their computer screen in front of them. But he warns that the info is in front of them they don't have the information in front of them instantly. So it's important to have all your information ready to answer the agent's questions. Have a copy of your most recent return, your previous year's return, and any notices from the IRS handy. In my experience, while that's helpful, if they don't see it, it doesn't really matter. I can tell them, yeah, this is what it says, but until they get it in front of them, right, they have to verify all that information. In many cases, you'll need to reference information on your previous year's taxes to verify your identity. And that goes online. When you go online and register, they're going to ask you about sometimes they ask you about your adjusted gross income for a different year and things like that. Or sometimes they ask you for your a bank account or your mortgage number, things like that. Lean on your tax professional. If you worked with an enrolled agent or accountant to file your taxes, contact them to get further insight into. Okay, and then they'll call the IRS, and they won't be able to get through too, unless. And we're going to talk about this in just a minute. There's a service out there that helps people like my office, and I have to, for full disclosure, we use this service that we're going to talk about here. That they call, it's like cutting in line. Actually, someone gets in line for you, but I'll talk about that in just a minute. If you haven't worked with a tax professional before and want extra help figuring out your situation, you might consider contacting one in your area. Gotta contact your local IRS office. Yeah, because they're going to answer your phone too. Nope, no, they're not. While most IRS taxpayer assistance centers were closed during the height of the pandemic, they've started to reopen in many areas. Well, that's true. They have started to reopen, but they're backed up tremendously. If you live very close to an office, you can go down. Again, not very easy. IRS Taxpayer Assistance Centers are open Monday through Friday. Contact the Taxpayer Advocate Service. Again, they're very good for some things and not so very good for many other things. So it may be just a waste of your time. And they're busy too, and it's very hard to get through to them. What do you do to try to get answers from the IRS? Being persistent. Well, that's true. I mean, but you really don't have a choice but to be persistent. If you have to talk to the IRS, well, then you have to be persistent. If you keep calling and you can't get through, again, 7%, you got to keep trying. So that's the first story. There's another story here. This is just another story about how bad it is. This one's more recent though. This is yesterday, I believe. The latest on federal tax refunds, possible IRS dates, and how to track your money. And they just go back with a lot of these numbers that we just talked about. The IRS is still facing a massive backlog that's causing stress for taxpayers for their federal tax refund checks, including unprocessed individual returns, 220 returns with errors and amended returns that require corrections on special handling. Refunds normally take around 21 days to process, but the IRS says its delays could be 120 days. I can tell you it can be longer than that. The tax agency is also juggling stimulus checks, child tax credit payments, refunds for tax overpayment, unemployment benefits. There's lots of things that they've been fighting. And they gave them the Congress had extended everything also. How long should I wait for my federal refund? As long as it takes, because you're not going to get the money unless you. Why is there a massive backlog? We already talked about that, so I'm not going to get into that with you. How do I use my refund tool? This is the Irs.gov. There's lots of tools on Irs.gov that can answer a lot of your questions. So again, you should always start there anyway because it's easier than trying to phone call. And of course, they want you to call and get away from using the phone. What about these Irs Tax Refund Messages? What does the IRS math error? We talked about the math error notice. There's many more times this year than in previous years because of stimulus checks and other reasons. So there's a lot of math errors, and that's bogging things down. How should I contact the call if you can get through? What does the IRS transaction mean? Okay, so I'm not going to get into that with you. This is from a company called ENQ, And this is the company that I mentioned earlier. That again, for full disclosure, we use this company to lower our wait times for the IRS. But this is from 2017. So these numbers are, and they say, well, they made 10,000 calls, and then they give you the statistics from 2017. It's a little, it's outdated, right? Because now that they're talking about, let me see, the average hold times, 80 minutes, but this was from 2017, between 16 and 17. So these numbers are much higher now. But even then, again, even when things were good, they were bad. So the disconnects, and again, because they had made, this is the company that calls, they made 10,000 calls. So they know, they've got records about how.
We're sorry, but due to extremely high call volume and the topic you requested, we are unable to handle your call at this time.
Well,
please try again later or on our next business day. You can also visit us on the web at www.irs.gov. Thank you.
Might have played. Okay, and then here's an article about how this firm cashed in on the IRS. So this entrepreneur, that company that I just mentioned, ENQ, I believe it's ENQ, right? It's automatic payment, so I don't write them a check. I forget the name of the outfit. Anyway, so now there's people that are very unhappy with this company because, here's an entrepreneur saw a problem and tried to fix it and make money. And nothing. In my opinion, nothing wrong with that. People are standing in line, and some people will pay a premium in order to not wait in line that long, and that's what we do. There is a premium. We have to pay the service to do it. But it's better to be able to talk to the IRS and move our cases along than to not be able to talk with the IRS and not move our cases along. And so there's many people that are complaining about it, that, it's not fair, it's not right. Put differently, IRS employees do not answer more than 75 million telephone calls from taxpayers seeking help in complying with their tax obligations. 75 million people. The company called ENQ swaps IRS switchboard with its own calls. Then they swamp them with their own calls. Then sell desirable time-saving slots near the head of the hold line to accountants and tax preparers and attorneys, willing to pay up to $1,000 a year. I think we pay more than that by subscribing to the line cutting service. And I like the way they put it. It's a line cutting service. Actually, again, they're in line, and you do get to go in line and take their place. Anyway, when there's a problem, there's an opportunity, and that makes sense. Again, that's the entrepreneur, that's the American way, in my opinion. But they go down and they are not happy with. Many people are not happy. It should be outlawed. It should be banned. Whenever anybody's unhappy with something, right? They always tell us how it should be outlawed, banned. It's not fair. They make it worse for everybody else. And they are making money at it. That's the American way, in my opinion, right? You see a problem, you try to solve that problem. There's technology now that lets you do that. Get to call up and hold the line and pass it on to somebody else. Let them hold. I don't know if they do actually swamp the switchboard, because if I'm getting one of their lines, if I didn't get their line, I'd be on hold anyway. Now it would be longer, but I'd still be on hold, and so I don't know if that actually reduces. Do some come to fruition and then there's nobody there? I guess that could happen, but then they don't answer the phone, so the IRS says, "IRS, nobody's there. Go to the next one." So I don't know how much time it takes. One of the tax preparers here said, "Well, I'm going to have to pass this cost along to my clients." Actually, we can't pass it along to our clients. We don't. It saves us time. So it saves our client time. Actually, in my opinion, again, everybody can have a different opinion about how this works. I like the service. We use it, as I said, and we're going to continue to use it because it works. And unless they outlaw it, right? And they might outlaw it. So, but we'll see how that works. There's another story here about the bank statements, and and how many people are complaining and saying what the IRS is doing is they're getting banks to do their own work for them, because the IRS can get your tax records now, but they need a subpoena, right? And they have to go through the process. And now they're going to just make the banks do all their work for them. But we don't have time for that story today, but maybe tomorrow. Tomorrow is Friday. Tomorrow is watchtalkradio.com, the Trust Radio Network, at 2:00. So you can join us on watchtalkradio.com or where you're catching us here. And at 2:00, and we have a attorney tomorrow, Dave Schluter, estate planning and real estate attorney, to talk about his work and what he does. And then the IRS Radio Hour after that. So you can join us there. We'd love to have you. We always have a lot of fun on those shows, and look forward to seeing you there tomorrow. Otherwise, we'll be back here on Monday. And again, we invite you to join us on Monday. I'm going to ask you to like and subscribe. Like us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube. Be helpful. We're getting a lot more hits than we ever did, and so we'd appreciate it, and we'd appreciate your help to pass it along to others. So the more likes and subscriptions we get, the better it'll help us reach more people to share this information with them. And remember, if you're fighting the IRS, then you should get a copy of my book, Deal with Your IRS Problems Today. Opem Tax Advocates helps business professionals solve their IRS problems forever. But some people can do it themselves. But the place to start is with my book, Deal with Your IRS Problem Today. Go to freeirsbook.com, freeirsbook.com. Get yourself a copy. So thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you very soon on another venue. Maybe we'll see you on Monday or maybe tomorrow. Thanks so much again for joining us. Uh-oh.